Welcome to Total War News. My name is Cody Bonds. Today's top story is that a blog post has been released on the Immortal Empires combined map for Total War Warhammer 3. For all of you looking to get your hands on Immortal Empires, they're aiming to roll out the beta version of the game mode this August. As for what exactly a beta is, well, we'll go into it at the end of this story. But what is new in Immortal Empires? Well, Immortal Empires is much more than the sum of each game's content smashed together into a larger map. Rather, the new game mode offers a variety of features and approaches to a combined battlefield. We can confirm now that all 86 legendary lords from all 3 Total War titles will be playable, though their availability will depend on which DLCs and games you own. Be'lakor is now a legendary lord with his own unique faction to play from the start of a game. Dedicated factions will now be made available to a number of older legendary lords, meaning Gromendal, Helmengorst, and Volkmar the Grim will no longer be sub-factions, but get starting positions and factions of their own. There will also be new starting locations for 29 of the older legendary lords, moving them around on the larger game map to help facilitate more interesting play. Certain older legendary lords will also see improvements to their personal faction mechanics. This includes Volkmar the Grim and Helmengorst, the stars of the much maligned first DLC for Total War Warhammer, the Grim and the Grave. Undoubtedly here the aim is to bring this DLC up to a more modern standard. The combined map will have a new Sea Lanes feature, which will allow you to move armies between distant lands and continents from one side of the map to the other without having to leapfrog them all the way across the map one turn at a time. Immortal Empires will now also feature a new dynamic endgame scenario, randomizing mid to late game challenges and introducing challenges to the late game steamroll, where the player is so powerful that there's little to challenge them, and less of a reason to complete the campaign. So the idea here is to think greenskin invasions or resurgences of the undead as a few examples. Victory conditions for most factions have also been revamped. Most players don't end up finishing campaigns, and Creative Assembly wants to give them better reasons to do so and a greater level of satisfaction for doing it. As such, they've simplified the victory requirements into more meaningful objectives, while avoiding any arbitrary playstyle requirements. Corruption has been a hot topic with the release of Warhammer 3, and it gets another rework for Immortal Empires. Players will now have tools for spreading or reducing corruption through more active usage of their armies. Small amounts of natural reduction will also be available to uncorrupted factions, because with so many factions wielding so many different types of corruption, they really do need a more simple way of combating it that does not require a building. 8-player multiplayer campaigns for Immortal Empires have also been confirmed, and as a bonus, only the host of an Immortal Empires multiplayer campaign needs to own all 3 games. Friends who only own Warhammer 3 will still be able to join the campaign, though their legendary lord choices will be limited to the ones that they personally own, and not the host. As you can see based on this brief snippet of the collection of content, there are a lot of new features and improvements on the way, including a new lease on life for many of the older legendary lords, and the Creative Assembly intends to talk about each of these points in finer detail in the weeks to come, so if you have any questions, they should be answered in the near future. The blog post also includes a rather lengthy discussion on why they are calling it a beta. When it was first mentioned earlier in the year, some people did note concern with this decision. Well, will Immortal Empires be finished when it launches? Will it be implemented in smaller parts over time? How long do we have to wait until it's fully playable? They wanted to take a moment to explain why they made this choice and what you can expect when it finally arrives. They begin by talking about how Immortal Empires is built. In order to create the game mode, the development team had to collect and combine the content, features, mechanics, systems, and code from 3 different code bases into a single mega campaign. Taking big chunks of content, data, and code from one game and porting them into another is always a challenging endeavor, and takes a significant amount of time and tailoring to get all the pieces to fit nicely with each other. Even after the technical implementations are done, there are still bugs to find and fix, as well as a significant amount of playtesting to ensure that one race isn't over or underpowered in comparison to the others. In short, they're making sure to point out that Immortal Empires isn't just a port of content from one game to another. Lighting across all battle maps is more advanced and, more importantly, different in Warhammer 3, so it takes time to relight and reauthor all the lighting in all of the older maps to match the current game. Achieving parity also applies to other elements of the game, such as UI, character models, VFX, audio, and general game balance, and will be a gradual process that continues over time as, quite frankly, there are millions of items and they are bound to miss something. The current team also considers corruption to be a priority mechanic to be refocused on. They've changed fundamentally how it works in Warhammer 3 and look to improve it further based on your feedback. It's a game system that touches every playable race, regardless of how they exploit, react, or suffer from it, so it's something that needs to be in a good place. These are obviously the more visible items that they've chosen to make sure to highlight, but they continue to say they're determined to get Immortal Empires into your hands as soon as possible, but want to be realistic in that this is not a final or finished product on day one, as much like Mortal Empires for Warhammer 2, it will be a living, evolving, and changing gameplay mode. They do make sure to note though that this won't be an opt-in beta. They will add it right to the main game of Warhammer 3, so everyone will see it from day one. This will avoid dividing the player base across separate versions of the game and harming multiplayer experience. Which raises the big question, what will Immortal Empires look like on day one? At present, their aim is for the mode to be fully content complete in terms of the available races, factions, legendary lords, units, and geography, as well as the extra features and improvement noted previously. The blog post continues on from this point to again put caveats and brakes on the hype train. They don't want you to get overly excited here because, well, they know there will likely be bugs, and that bit them in the butt pretty hard for Warhammer 3. The head of DLC content production is Rich Aldridge, who has long been celebrated for his DLCs at the Creative Assembly. There will be an interview with Rich Aldridge on this channel in the coming weeks, asking him about how a DLC is actually made and going into how the sausage gets created. So, stay tuned to this channel if you'd be interested to hear more about it from the horse's mouth, and if you have any questions for Rich, make sure to post them in the comments below. Though I would make sure to point out, he cannot answer when Medieval 3 is, or any questions not related to Warhammer. Or if he does, we'll probably just get a canned answer, so, you know, let's not. And that's the end of our latest Total War news. I'm Cody Bonds, those were children playing in the background, and this is my news anchor voice. Thanks for watching.